Just a few words for me before we get started. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this morning, and to also thank Alex and Karina and Rosie for all the work that they put into this webinar, and for moderating today. I'd also like to express a huge thank you to the Alan and Patricia Koval Foundation for sponsoring the new NOAA program for many, many years now. So thank you for your steady and generous support, Pat. This year
Our
is
pleasure.
WPC's, yeah, yeah, our pleasure too. Thank you. This year is WPC's 40th anniversary. And for 34 of those 40 years now, we've been sending a young Canadian biologist overseas to learn from globally renowned conservation organizations through the Canada's new NOAA program. And those NOAAs have gone on to save some of the planet's most endangered species here in Canada and overseas. And I see some of you in the audience today. And as Peter mentioned, I myself was a new NOAA years ago and many, many years ago. And it did completely change my life and launched my career as a conservation biologist. The thing is that the new NOAA program is completely unique. There's no other program like it in the world where a young Canadian can take an in-depth 3-month course at one of the world's most renowned conservation-focused zoos, and then go on to work within a field team in Mauritius that has been saving critically endangered species and is involved with many of the greatest conservation success stories in the world. So we're quite fortunate to have the strong long-term collaboration with the Douro Wildlife Conservation Trust and the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation, and both are global conservation leaders. So thank you to Douro and thank you to MWF. And my last thank you for this morning is for Rosie. Thank you for taking the time today to present with us your experiences as a new NOAA. And thank you for being such a wonderful ambassador for the program during all of your travels and back here in Canada. You're a remarkable person and one that I'm sure everyone will enjoy meeting this morning. So with that, I will hand things off to you, Rosie. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, first I'm just going to say that it feels kind of wild to be thanked. I feel like I should be thanking you, and I'm sure that will come through in my presentation. I just have so much gratitude. This is the most amazing experience I've ever had in my entire life, and I'm very, very grateful. Okay, so let's get started. Wait, actually, before we get started, I would like to communicate that I am so nervous that I might pass out. So if that happens, mom and dad, the door is unlocked, so you can come in and resuscitate me if need be. And if people want to turn on their cameras, that would probably help me a lot. So if you feel comfortable doing so, please feel free to go ahead. And yeah, so we're going to start with a land acknowledgement. So I'm sharing this presentation from the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe and the Adowandaron people. Through their teachings, I'm learning what it means to care for the land as a relative rather than a resource. In her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, Robin Wall-Kimmerer writes, "Knowing that you love the earth changes you, but when you feel that the earth loves you in return, that feeling transforms the relationship into a sacred bond." And I would say this is a learning that I received not only from reading this book, but also it was kind of solidified in my experience, which I'm about to share. I hold this wisdom close to my heart, and I strive to nurture that bond with gratitude and humility, both in this presentation and in the way that I move through the world. All right. So first things first, a little bit about me. My first pursuable love was actually not animals, it was hockey. And when I say pursuable, what I mean is that I've always loved animals ever since I was a little kid, but I never thought that I could have a career working with them. And I kind of thought that my love for animals would always be in a dog owning capacity and volunteering at the Humane Society type way. I was not that good at math and science. I struggled with mental health, which kind of was a bit of a barrier to having the confidence that I needed to pursue biology in university. I just didn't think I was smart enough. And hockey was just frankly easier to be good at. Like you just skate really fast and go score goals. And that just seemed a lot easier to me. So I first went to university at with the goal actually of just becoming a professional hockey player. I attended Mount Allison in New Brunswick, um, and I ended up blowing out my hips in year 2, I think. I got bilateral hip reconstruction, and I ended up having to transfer to Trent University in Peterborough because it was closer to my surgical team, and there's a lot more, physio resources in Ontario than New Brunswick. Um, but as devastated as I was at the time to make this transition, it turns out that it was actually, I was so lucky that this happened because in Peterborough, I started volunteering for the Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre, which is this amazing organization. They are a wildlife rehab center, but specifically for turtles. And they're just absolutely incredible. And this is where I fell in love with turtles. And so I always say that if I hadn't blown my hips out, I never would have fallen in love with turtles. Kind of a weird connection, but life is weird like that, I guess. So then I started working at Pinery Provincial Park in the summers, and I had the best time ever. And I worked with the most amazing and inspiring people. And when I started out as a student, I put as much time as possible into the Turtle Project, but it wasn't possible to spend all my time there because the funding had sort of run out for the project and there just wasn't as much resources devoted to it. So once I stopped being a student and once I graduated, I and started to work for Pinery full-time, I wrote a grant proposal for equipment and salary for 2 turtle technician positions to implement the turtle conservation project in the park, which had been first started by Dr. Christina Davy during her PhD studies in 2008. And so I was hoping to kind of revive this project and breathe a new life into it. And the grant was successful. I became a turtle technician, which just sounds, when people ask me what I do, and I'm like, I'm a turtle technician, and it's always a great conversation starter. So I was kind of living my dream there for a few summers. Oh, yes. Duh. Sorry, I just saw Lance's message. Christina Davy was also a new NOAA, of course. And yeah, so I was working as a turtle tech and I was having a great time. And then I went on these 2 field trips. They were courses called Tropical Field Herpetology. And I was lucky enough to go twice, one time as a student and one time as an intern. And this was such a pivotal experience for me because this is when I realized that I want to be a species at risk biologist for turtles. Or in other words, I want to be Scott Gillingwater, if that means anything to anyone who lives in my area. Okay, so after that, I continued working at Pinery, but I really started to expand my turtle conservation work beyond Pinery. And I got to work with these other really special, really rare species, such as spotted turtles, wood turtles, spiny softshells. And before I knew it, I had worked with every single turtle species in the province. And I was very, very proud of that. And then this program came up, this weird new NOAA program. I was like, what the heck is this? So Lance kind of gave an overview of what this program is. So maybe I'll just briefly go over it. But yeah, like he said, it's a scholarship and a training opportunity for a young Canadian wildlife biologist to travel and work with some of the most endangered species in the world. So it starts off with a 3-month graduate certificate in endangered species management in Jersey, UK. And here we learned about breeding endangered species in captivity and reintroducing them into the wild and just these really innovative approaches to conservation. After that, I went on a 6-month internship in Mauritius, and here I gained practical experience in all of the conservation approaches that I had learned about in the program. To work with the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation on what is widely considered to be some of the world's most successful conservation restoration projects. I don't know if I have a good word for how that feels, but I'm thinking, I want to say just humbled. And now that I'm back in Canada, I'm hoping to use everything that I've learned so far to lead freshwater turtle recovery programs. And not only that, but to do so using these innovative science-based hands-on conservation strategies that I learned on my experience and that can sometimes be neglected in traditional recovery programs over here on this side of the world. Okay, let's get started. So Jersey was my first place to go on the map. It's one of the Channel Islands. It's a very, very small island, very beautiful. Here I spent 12 weeks at the Durrell Conservation Academy, earning the Durrell Endangered Species Management Graduate Certificate, which is kind of a mouthful, but we call it DESMAN for short, Durrell Endangered Species Management. And DESMAN is a key part of Gerald Durrell's legacy. But who, might you wonder, is Gerald Durrell? Well, he's a dude. He was born in India in 1925, but he was raised in the UK. He always loved animals, and he actually first made his living by collecting wild animals and selling them to zoos, which sounds kind of crazy, but I guess the times were different back then, and you could just do that sort of thing. Now, Durrell, he loved animals, and he would take such great care of them. But what he found was that they would often die soon after he sold them to the zoos. And the zoos would say, "We need more of these animals." And Durrell would say, "I can't just get you unlimited of these animals. You have to stop killing them." And I think this is kind of when he started to realize that, yeah, some of these species are declining. Like there's a finite, if not decreasing amount of these individuals in the wild. And he thought, well, I wonder if zoos could be used not for entertainment for humans, but actually as a way to preserve these individuals in the wild. And so with that thought in mind, in 1959, Gerald Durrell founded the Jersey Zoo. And this was the first zoo in the entire world designed, like I said, not for entertainment, but for preservation and recovery of endangered species. So that vision, it eventually became the Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust. And this organization is a global leader in species recovery, reintroduction efforts, and conservation training. And Durrell's thing, maybe his motto was he was all about the little brown jobs. So as you can see, these pictures that just came up, like a meerkat and a fruit bat and a tortoise, you know, they aren't necessarily the most charismatic animals, unless you're me and you're like a freak for turtles. But his point was, yeah, we're not taking these animals here to impress people. We're taking them here to because they play key roles in their ecosystems, and we want to conserve them. Okay, so just quickly, just a little bit more about the Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust. It's an international charity saving species from extinction, and it delivers its conservation mission through these three core areas of operation. So first, like I mentioned, Jersey Zoo. I already said they're focused on conservation, saving the world's most endangered species from extinction rather than keeping them for entertainment. They deliver endangered species breeding, and also they document these protocols so that they can be used by other zoos to supplement these conservation breeding efforts. And they also conduct research that informs conservation action to protect species in the wild. For example, they might have a certain species in the zoo that it's not endangered. However, they are closely related to an endangered species in the wild, and they're able to come up with an effective captive breeding program. And then down the line, if they decide to bring the endangered species into captivity, they can use this protocol that they've come up with, and they know that it's going to be safe for the animals, essentially. So pretty amazing operation, the Jersey Zoo. Second, conservation knowledge. So this is kind of a twofold point. So first, the Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust is dedicated to training conservation practitioners to conserve wildlife more effectively around the world. So there's academies in Jersey and Mauritius. I went to the one in Jersey. They have in-person and remote training. And this is actually one of the Trust's greatest impacts for global conservation, because over 1,600 conservation biologists, managers, and other types of practitioners from 149 countries have been trained here at Durrell Academy. And then they've been supported upon returning to their own country and applying what they've learned in the field. This number does include all 34 of Canada's new NOAAs. Shout out to us. And then the other side of conservation knowledge would be the monitoring and evaluating of conservation science. So I think I mentioned this earlier, but they are providing scientific evidence to guide conservation strategies, and then they monitor the effectiveness of these actions and evaluate the impacts. So, we're not just spitting out captively bred animals into the wild. We're documenting it religiously, and we're looking at the results, and we're seeing what went wrong and fixing it the next time, and just bringing all this information to create kind of a blueprint for other conservation practitioners to follow. And then the third part of the program here is all the field programs. So the Durrell Trust supports local hands-on conservation in country to combat human-driven threats, support local communities, and recover threatened or missing wildlife, and restore ecological functions and habitats. So what this would look like is that when Durrell would decide to save one or multiple species, they would commit and establish these long-term programs in the country. They would employ local teams to do all the work on the ground. And today, the Trust has field programs all over the world, including in the Caribbean, Assam, Madagascar, Mauritius, Galapagos, and many, many more. Many of these programs are very, very long running, like I said, and some of them are considered the most successful conservation programs in the world. So Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust, very, very important for conservation. So I'm just going to go over, there were, I think, 12 modules that we studied at in Desmond, but I'm just going to talk about the 4 that were the biggest highlights for me personally. But before I go into the modules, I just want to say that the highlight of this program wasn't necessarily the modules, because I could probably take these modules at any institution, but what made this experience so special and unique is that I was living and learning with trainees from all around the world. I had opportunities to learn from different colleagues that were working on different but similar projects across the world. So my cohort had 12 students in it, and we came from 7 different countries: Costa Rica, Oman, Mauritius, Madagascar, Nigeria, Indonesia, Hong Kong, and of course, Canada. And these people that I was working so closely with, back in their home countries, they would be working with animals such as great green macaws, gorillas, elephants, sea turtles, fruit bats, Arabian leopards, and just all these incredible animals. And I felt like this experience, part of what makes it so unique is that it builds a global community of conservation professionals sharing our knowledge and rewilding the world. As well, it creates hope more effectively than I think any other program in this topic could do, because you're meeting people who are fighting the same battle as you from all 4 corners of the world. And it makes it kind of impossible to feel alone, as I think we often do in this field as conservationists. At first, when I met everyone, the first things you talk about are your differences, like, what animals are you working with? Oh, well, this is the different animal that I'm working with. But what I found was that as we learned more about each other's lives and the challenges that we faced in our careers and our aspirations, I slowly started to realize that we're actually a lot more similar than I thought. And it was actually our differences that made our similarities that much more meaningful. And by the end of the course, we really felt like family To know that you have a family across the world fighting the same battle as you is a really powerful feeling. And I think we as a group felt that power um, after the course was done to go off and improve conservation both individually and collectively by supporting each other throughout the program and beyond. Um, um, we did this one project where we had to paint a picture of what we felt we had learned in this course. And it might sound cheesy, but I'm actually so proud of this. I wish I could have taken it home and I would put it on my wall right now. Um, yeah, this is really how it feels. All those different colors represents, all the different things that we all bring to the table from our own unique experiences. And yeah, put it all together and you're going to save some animals. Um, okay, and then the final thing that made this course so unique was that, okay, it wasn't just a series of courses in some school somewhere. It was like this fully immersive conservation experience. So it was the whole package of living in Durrell Wildlife Hostel with the conservationists from all around the world. You're studying at Durrell Conservation Academy, which is attached to the hostel. There's conservation experts flying in from Durrell field sites all around the world to teach these modules. And then you're walking across the lot to the Jersey Zoo for field trips and practicums. And yeah, it was just a one of a kind experience that I don't think there's anything like it. Okay, sorry, that was very long, but now into the modules. Whoops. Okay, so one of the modules that was really important to me was the research and analysis for conservation. We learned about different population survey design. If you're trying to answer the question, like, what is the population? Sorry, yeah, what is the population size of this group of animals living here? So we did capture, mark, recapture, and distance sampling. Now, both of these surveys I actually have done before, but what was really cool about this experience was that they weren't just teaching us the theory behind it. They were, as you can see I don't know if you can see my mouse, but in the top picture here, we were doing a mini mark and recapture with these like little chips and kind of seeing how the math worked to come up with that population estimate. And then similarly with distance sampling, oh gosh, okay, to give like the most brief overview ever of distance sampling, distance sampling assumes that um, the animals that you detect, no, the animals that are closer to you have a higher detectability than the ones that are farther away. And so as you're walking down this transect and you're counting how many animals you see within 1 meter of you, and then within 2 meters and 3, and so on. And then you do this horrible math and graphing, and it gives you a population estimate, and then you can multiply that from the transect to the entire site of the population. They explained it way better to me than I just did to you, but you'll just have to trust me on that one. And yeah, they actually made us do the math. And I found that to be really valuable. Though I will say that when graphing, I had flashbacks to grade 9 math when we were doing graphs. And I remember in the course, we were doing this graphing. And once you finished making your graph, you were allowed to go out and try radio telemetry. And I've just never felt more like a little kid than, I have to finish my math problem and I suck at math, and then I get to go out and have fun. So then when we went outside, we got to practice other population monitoring tools, uh, such as radio tracking, camera trapping, remote detecting, molecular methods, dogs, aerial surveillance, satellite tracking, all these amazing things. And I think this picture is so funny because I don't know, if you zoom in on my face, you can probably see like a tear rolling down my cheek because I'm so relieved to not be doing my graphs anymore. And I just wanted to get outside and practice radio tracking. So we would hide this little radio tag in my hand there in the parking lot, and we would use the antenna to bounce satellite waves off of the radio tag, and it would help you find it. So in In real life, you would, of course, put that radio tag on an animal, and you could use that to track the animal. Okay, you may be wondering why such a gorgeous, beautiful picture is here in the background of such horrible and scary and terrifying words, such as data management and statistics and QGIS. And let me tell you, when I first went into this program, these were the things I was the most terrified of, because I told you I simply am not very good at math. But it was really cool how they did it, because they told us about this weird land far, far away called Round Island. That's actually what the picture is of here. And they taught us data management, statistics, and QGS within the context of Round Island. And Round Island just so happens to be one of those really, really successful conservation stories that I mentioned earlier that has been implemented by Durrell's Trust. So yeah, we learned data management, like Excel stuff, validation tables, and automated entry. We did pivot tables and graphs and descriptive statistics. And we did QGIS, and I actually made a map. And I never thought I could make a map in 1,000 years. So that was a huge confidence booster. Like, I can do these things too. And oh, sorry, I forgot these pictures. So the picture on the left there is a picture taken from Round Island, and off in the horizon, you can see the other offshore islets. So from left to right, they are Coin de Mire, Ile Plate, Îlot Gabriel, Rocher aux Pigeons. And basically, they were trying to see, I think the example they gave us was, is there a significant difference in the size between males and females Telfair skinks, which is this picture on the right here. And then they took it a step further, and they said, is there a difference in size between males and females between each island? And so it was just, I don't know, a little more interesting way to learn these really difficult things for me. And it really helped. And I have this terribly embarrassing story to share with you all today about ANOVAs. ANOVAs are, like, if anyone doesn't know, they're a type of statistical test. And the whole time that the teacher was teaching us about ANOVAs, I thought that she was saying Anover in a British accent, like ANOVA, Anover. And so I didn't understand what she was saying. And I kept on Googling Anover. I'm like, Anovers, why is nothing coming up? And it's because I had the word wrong. But in the end, I got it all figured out. So don't worry about me. All right. Okay. So my next and final module that I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about was species and population management. And I would say this was the most mind-blowing module that I learned about, because we learned about these really incredible hands-on innovative conservation strategies, like I mentioned before. And I'll briefly go over them. So a conservation translocation is the deliberate release of a species into the wild, either from captivity or relocated from other wild areas. And then there's different types of conservation translocations. So I'm following the line down here. So let's start with a reintroduction translocation in the bottom left corner there. So this would be a reintroduction of an organism inside of its natural range to areas from which it has been lost. And it's aiming to reestablish a viable population of the focal species within its natural range where it already existed. And one really special example of this is actually something that was done by WPC. The mottled dusky wing was reintroduced to Pinery, which just so happens to be where I work. And I was lucky enough to be a very, very, very small part of it. And as far as I'm aware, they've been finding these butterflies that are now breeding on their own after they've been released. So that's like very, very exciting news. Okay, next, I'm going to talk about population reinforcement. And that would just be a translocation of an organism into an already existing population of the same species within its natural range. And we're just trying to increase or boost the population size here. And in doing so, you're going to improve the population viability because you've improved the genetic diversity of the population. This one is pretty awesome too, and there's several examples of this being done nearby, such as Scott Gillingwater with his captive breeding programs of spiny softshells in London. He's pretty much saved that species from extinction, I think, not to be dramatic. And then the Toronto Zoo and the Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre, they have this incredible Blandings turtle captive breeding program where they're trying to boost native populations with captively bred Blandings turtles. Then we've got ecological replacement. This one might be the most controversial of conservation translocations, just because up until recently, there had been a little bit less empirical evidence showing that it works. But this has changed, and we'll get into that. So an ecological replacement is a translocation of an organism outside of its natural range to perform a specific ecological function that has been lost through the extinction of another organism. And this usually involves replacing the extinct species with a related subspecies or some other type of closely related species that will perform the same type of ecological function. So probably the most famous example of this would be with the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation. So they used to have native giant tortoises called Aldabra tortoises. They were giant tortoises. They were Mauritian giant tortoises, and they were hunted to extinction. And all the ecosystems started to degrade because the giant tortoises played such a crucial role in seed dispersal and like trampling invasive species, and they were just crucial to the ecosystem. So Mauritian Wildlife Foundation ended up performing an ecological replacement where they translocated this other species of giant tortoise called the Aldabra tortoise, and those tortoises came into the ecosystem and they just started acting almost exactly as the native ones had acted before they went extinct. And that was pretty groundbreaking. And hopefully more groundbreaking techniques can be used like this in the future. Okay, finally, assisted colonization. So here we've got a translocation of an organism to benefit the conservation status of the focal species outside its natural range. And this aims to establish populations in places where the current or future conditions are more likely to be suitable than those within the natural range. So this would be maybe if there's a certain species that functions best in hot climates, and maybe with global warming, those hotter climates are moving farther north, and maybe they would throw some of those animals up there to try and establish a population that can keep up with the remaining times. Yeah, that's all and this super duper important quote by Dr. Carl Jones, who's the, I believe he's the chief research officer of the Durrell Trust. He says that species conservation drives ecosystem restoration. And this is kind of a huge theme of the entire trust. Basically, what he's saying here is that if you choose a species to focus on, all the other benefits of habitat restoration and advocacy and community engagement and education, all those things they'll fall into place, because you can't save a species without saving its habitat. So these were super important words of wisdom, and I'll come back to them a little bit later. And then I couldn't resist throwing in this slide here. This was my first ever encounter with an Aldabra tortoise. It happened to be at the Jersey Zoo, where they have them in captivity. And this guy right here, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name right now, which is terrible, but I swear we were best friends in the moment. He had grown too quickly in captivity, and because of this, the weight of his shell his weight grew faster than his muscles. So the weight of his shell was so great that he could barely hold himself up. This happens a lot with captive turtles and tortoises. That's why they don't really make good pets. And so this little giant guy, he needed physiotherapy. And you would get in there and you'd massage his hamstrings and work out the knots. And that was just wild to me. The reason I was doing this was because we had these practicums in the Jersey Zoo. And for mine, I chose to focus on building skills in captive breeding of turtles, which is probably a huge surprise that I chose that. And this was just such a wonderful experience. And there was one problem, which was that, so the tortoise would always thank me for the massage by giving me a hug. And I loved this. But what would always end up happening is the other tortoises would get jealous and they would all come clamoring over to me. And I'm like, wow, this is so cute and amazing. And I might get crushed to death. So that was a fun and exciting and scary experience. And then probably the most important lesson I learned on my entire Jersey journey is that the only thing better than cuddling with a giant tortoise is cuddling with two giant tortoises. Okay, moving on. I couldn't resist that. Okay, let's talk about Mauritius. So after my Jersey program, I traveled to Mauritius. Real quick, I just want to talk about where Mauritius is, because if you're like me, you've never heard of it before, before being introduced to this program. Mauritius is part of a small set of islands in the Indian Ocean called the Mascarenes. And they used to have this very diverse landscape and amazing biodiversity of species and reptile-dominated ecosystems. But when humans settled on Mauritius in 1638, it all kind of went downhill from there for the wildlife on the island. So tortoises were harvested for food and oil. Their young were killed by introduced pigs, cats, and dogs, and rats, and the environment was just severely degraded for colonization. In 1730, we think that the giant tortoises were extirpated or locally extinct from the mainland. And so they only existed on this one offshore islet of Mauritius called Round Island. Now, without the invasive predators that had been introduced to the mainland, Round Island was able to retain the last semi-functional reptile-dominated ecosystem in the Mascarenes. And this sort of reflected what once occurred on the mainland and the other offshore islands of Mauritius prior to the arrival of humans. And by the start of the 1800s, all of these endemic species had become restricted only to Round Island. So at one point, they were endemic, which means that they don't live anywhere else in the world. They were endemic to the Mascarenes. And then at this point, they had become endemic to an even smaller site, which is Round Island. So the Mauritius Wildlife Foundation came into being, and they wanted to breathe life back in some of these populations. Some of their most amazing success stories occurred with the Mauritius kestrel, pink pigeon, echo parakeet, Mauritius fody, olive white-eye, and orange-tailed skink. And I'll let you guys look those stories up if you're interested. But just for me, the most amazing story is that of the Mauritius kestrel, which is that photo in the bottom right there. So in 1974, actually only 4 individuals remained due to habitat loss and DDT thinning the eggshells. But Carl Jones, who I mentioned earlier, he led this recovery program that included egg collection, captive breeding, and reintroduction efforts. And because of these efforts, the numbers actually jumped to 50 in the 80s. So from 4 to 50. And then by 2005, there were over 800 of them. So pretty amazing story that kind of shows that if you don't ever lose hope, you can accomplish pretty amazing things. And then the mission statement, sorry, that's the word I was looking for, of the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation is recreating lost ecosystems by saving some of our rarest species from extinction and restoring the native forest. There was the fauna team and the island restoration team. I worked on the island restoration team, which mainly worked on the offshore islets of Îles Aigrettes and Round Island. So I'm going to quickly introduce you to Îles Aigrettes. Here's a brief history. So it was a very small coralline limestone island, about 805 meters off the southeast coast of Mauritius. So you could boat there in about 5 minutes. It was home to the last remnants of dry coastal forest, which at one point in time used to be found around the coasts of most of mainland Mauritius. But tree logging, land clearance, and introduction of exotic species pretty much destroyed almost all of the native flora and fauna. Then in 1965, the island was declared a nature reserve because of these now super rare remnants of the dry coastal forest. And ecological restoration began in 1984 by Mauritius Wildlife Foundation. And here's how it went. So in 1991, shrews, rats, and mongooses were eradicated, and they began weeding out introduced species, and they planted a bunch of native species. In between 1998 and 2003, 30,000 to 40,000 plants per season were planted, which is pretty amazing number. Now, unfortunately, despite all these efforts, these surveys were showing that in the deforested areas of the island, there was no natural regeneration happening. It was basically just relying on these conservationists to come in and hand plant the species again. And so in the 1990s, 4 Aldabra tortoises were introduced to Îles Aigrettes to, try and fulfill that ecological niche of the giant Mauritian tortoises that once lived there. And over the course of the next 15 years, they did like a really slow, soft release where, the tortoises, they would start in an enclosure and then they would let some free. And over time, they established their own population of Aldabra tortoises, which is successfully breeding on its own. And they're just living all over the island now. So when introduced, these Aldabra tortoises, not only did they disperse, but they actually improved the germination of seeds with their guts. So that was a really interesting finding. The project's success was to be measured by if the native seeds that are consumed by the tortoises could be dispersed, germinate, and grow into seedlings. That invasive plants could be controlled by the tortoises grazing. That the tortoises would remain healthy with low rates of mortality and improve their body conditions. And finally, that the tortoises would establish a successful reproducing population. And all 4 of these indicators had positive results, and this project was evaluated as wildly successful. It was very, very exciting. The only thing is that not all of the invasive weeds were preferred by the tortoises. And so this meant that continuous manual weeding by humans was still required as an important management tool alongside of the tortoises. So I think I mentioned this earlier, but these ecological replacements, they were and they still are highly controversial. But this study on Îles Aigrettes was actually the first empirical evidence that this conservation strategy can work. So super important and a really big deal. Okay, so all these intense conservation efforts have resulted in forest regeneration, and they've reintroduced all these other rare species to the island that used to be there but had since disappeared, such as pink pigeons, Mauritius photes. I already listed all these earlier, all of those ones. So I guess that leaves the question, what is there left to do on Îles Aigrettes? Okay, so there's specialized planting that continues to enhance species diversity and to provide food and habitat for the native species reintroduced. Also to provide habitat for a number of rare seabirds that nest there. There's supplementary feeding that is being given to the reintroduced birds. This is more done by the fauna team, whereas my team, the island restoration team, was more involved in invasive alien species management and monitoring the native reptile reintroduced populations. So we take care of the tortoises and make sure that they can do their work to help the ecosystem regenerate. This involves daily feeds and water refills, also pit tagging, so we can keep track of the tortoises and where they're roaming throughout the island. And on the top right corner there is a picture of George. And once again, couldn't resist devoting a whole slide to George. George is the most affectionate tortoise I've ever met. He's like the king of Îles Aigrettes. The picture on the left there is us meeting for the very first time. Picture in the middle is me winning him over with hibiscus flowers. And from that day that I one time piled a bunch of flowers in front of him, he would actually seek me out when I came to visit the island, and he would give me big giant tortoise cuddles. And yeah, I pretty much fell in love with him. Okay, so the other part of our job was invasive species management. So we used these really interesting and low cost invasive species detection strategies. So this involved, you can see on the left side there's two pictures of chew cubes on the bottom and soot slabs on the top here. And so we would deploy these around the island and then come back the next day, and you would be able to see the footprints of little creatures scurrying over the soot slabs, or the bite marks of little creatures who have chewed on the chew cubes. And from those prints, you can identify the species that have left these marks. And so we would know if an invasive species that had been previously eradicated had somehow made it back onto the island. And if this happened, all the translocation projects would shut down, and invasive species eradication would become the #1 focus. And we would use trapping methods such as the tomahawk trap there on the bottom of the screen, and pitfall traps on the top right there. The invasive critters would run along the fence there and fall into the bucket. It's kind of how that worked. And yeah, it was good stuff. Okay, moving on to Round Island. This is the most special place I've ever visited in my entire life. I hope I can convey some of that specialness to you all today. So speaking purely from a scientific point of view, the reason why Round Island is of exceptional biological importance is threefold. So first, it's the only large mascarene island free of introduced mammals, reptiles, and rats. And also, this is actually one of the very few islands in the entire world to never have been invaded by rats. Number two, it supports the last area of original palm savanna left in the mascarenes. And number three, it provides refuge to some of the last remaining populations in the world of different plant, reptile, and seabird species that are found nowhere else in the world. This includes at least 10 threatened native plant species, 7 taxa of native reptiles, 6 of which are endangered. And as well, it's the only known breeding ground for the rare Round Island petrel, which is this crazy hybrid of 3 different petrels, and spends its entire life out at sea and comes to Round Island to breed. Very, very special. Unfortunately, these biological values were under threat as a result of hundreds of years of modification from human activity driven by colonization. So I'm just going to get into the history. I'm going to try and go through this a little bit quickly. Like I said, the first half of the 1800s, there were rabbits and goats released. Even though Round Island was the last sort of stronghold to be free from these mammals, humans did get there eventually, and they did release them. And the effects of browsing by these mammals just degraded all the vegetation cover. Round Island lost all of its hardwood species, and there was a severe decline in palm productions. And of course, this led to soil erosion, and the whole habitat was pretty much just decimated. So in the 1840s, in the presence of goats and rabbits, native giant tortoises disappeared from the world. It's likely that the very last one was collected by humans in 1844. And fast forward to the 1970s, and the abundances of surviving reptile species were very, very low due to the destruction of habitat. So then in 1979, Mauritius Wildlife Foundation decided to try and eradicate the mammals, the invasive mammals that were kind of destroying the land here. So the goats were eradicated in 1979, rabbits were eradicated in 1986, and this was done with support from the Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust. And the very first year after the rabbit removal, there was rapid regeneration of native plants. And then that was it. That was the end of conservation on Round Island, and everything was perfect. Psych. Okay, 1 year later, there was also a rapid invasion of exotic plants. So it wasn't just native plants that were regenerating here. So all these weeds were extremely difficult to control and impossible to eradicate, just because they were so aggressive. And they actually started to swamp out what was left of the native plants. And so Mauritius Wildlife Foundation, they decided that in order to successfully restore the vegetation, this includes successfully controlling weeds and also regenerating the native plants that are now missing. They decided that they needed facilities on the island. So they set up a field nursery to restore the plant community and replace species that were once thought to have grown there. So in 2001, they built this field station on the bottom there, and it was permanently staffed. So there's always human presence on Round Island, though it was restricted from any other public access. Only conservationists could go there from Mauritius Wildlife Foundation. So these staff members, they stopped the seabird poaching. They reduced invasive alien species invasions through strict biosecurity measures. And they grew seeds. They grew plants from seeds in this nursery that they also built, that you can see in the picture above there. And they took across some seedlings from the mainland, and they grew them in captivity with this international team of volunteers and young Mauritians. And in 2001, they actually planted 1,500 plants, which is a pretty amazing accomplishment. But unfortunately, the following year, every single plant died. So they started to think about it, and they started thinking that if they're putting out these plants in a degraded ecosystem with harsh conditions like eroded soil, high winds, high temperatures, drought, nesting seabirds, of course all the plants died. And when we do reintroductions for fauna species, they're usually managed hands-on for a generation or several generations to help them adjust to these wild conditions. So they said, we need improved management techniques. So they built this water catchment for rainy season, the bottom picture there. And so those are at the top of the island, the peak of Round Island, and it catches rainwater during the wet season. And then these pipes connect other water catchment giant things all over the island. And you can pretty much access this water by opening and closing the pipes wherever you want. So they did this. This was with the idea of being able to water the plants after being planted in the field. They also found that as soon as the plants were planted, they would sometimes just die of like being burnt by the sun. So another thing they implemented was a hardening site. So in the top picture there, you can see that once the plants grow to a certain size, they're moved out of the nursery and into this like semi-wild enclosure where they get partial sun, and then in a few weeks, if they are successful, they'll get moved to a site where they get 75% sun. And then eventually they're moved to the site on the left side of the photo where they're getting 100% sun, and then they'll be deemed strong enough to survive in the wild. This is, of course, with the post-planting care that they've also established due to these giant water tanks. So they decided that for 2 years after planting, they would go out and provide support to these plants through weeding and watering. And with these newly established protocols, the survival increased to 65% in the first year after the plants were planted in the wild. So that was very exciting. At this time, reptiles, seabirds, palms, and hardwoods, they all started increasing and recovering. In 2003 to 2008, 29,000 plants of 52 species were planted, 32 of which were actually reintroductions. So just more amazing accomplishments. But there were still problems. So yes, there was recovery of hardwoods and palms, but there was still decline in other important species. And interestingly enough, some of the plants had actually been relying on the invasive mammals to eat them and open up space for more sunlight to come through. And this would allow them to thrive and spread. So when the rabbits and goats were eradicated, this had in some ways a positive effect, in some ways a negative effect. As well, historically, the giant tortoises would have kept those areas open for such plants to thrive. So once the tortoises were extirpated, the rabbits and goats were, in a way, filling their ecological niche of grazing and creating open spaces. But of course, the negative impact of these mammals far outweighed the benefit. So in 2008, after the wild success that had been had on Îles Aigrettes, there were Aldabra tortoises released on Round Island. And studies found that they consumed and dispersed seeds of several endangered endemic species. They successfully reduced invasive vegetation. And there was this one study that showed that after 6 years, the tortoise population would begin to become more cost effective than employing field staff. However, studies also found that they could potentially increase the germination of some invasive plants too. And so further inventions would still be required to restore the plant community. And that is why today we have a mix of field staff and tortoises working together on Round Island. That's Wonky. She was my bestie on Round Island. She's beautiful and amazing, and I love her. Today, what jobs are left to be done on Round Island? So today, the population of tortoises has reached approximately 1,000. But as I mentioned, there's still a lot of work to be done by human conservationists. And this includes conservation translocations, wildlife monitoring, forest rehabilitation, and invasive species management. So invasive species management, first, if you can prevent it, if you can prevent invasive species from colonizing on this island, that would be the best way to control invasives. So like I said, they closed down the island to the public, and we actually had really strict quarantine measures that we had to enact in order to actually get on the island. So for example, when we were packing for a trip to Round, you would have to go over every single thing that you owned, that you were bringing, to check for little tiny seeds or bugs or anything that could come in and colonize on Round that shouldn't have been there. And one of the most interesting techniques that was used for quarantining was that you weren't allowed to eat fruits with big seeds in them 48 hours before your trip, because what if they pass through you and establish these invasive colonies on Round Island? So just in case someone forgot about this rule, they had this system set up called Poo Pit on Round Island. And essentially, Poo Pit is where, okay, so there's no running water on Round. And so everything just goes in a bucket. And once the bucket is full, you replace it with another bucket. But eventually all the buckets become full. And then you have to do the task that's called poo pit. So if you're going to do poo pit, you're probably in for a bad day, and you're probably going to go over there, you're going to dig um, a 2 meter deep by 2 meter wide pit to dump all the buckets in. And it's a little bit traumatic, but it is, it is what it is. But basically, the idea of poo pit is that if there's any invasives that are going to pass through us and germinate on the island, they will be entirely restricted to the area of the island called Pooh Valley. And so in Pooh Valley, it's very easy to identify and eradicate these invasives very quickly. Okay, of course, some invasive species did make it onto the island, and for these ones, we would just have to try and control them. We would do this on point surveys and line surveys. Point survey is where you go to the GPS point where the invasive species was last found, and you go outwards in a circle to about 15 to 20 meters and check for more of these individuals. If you see them, you pull them, of course. Line surveys are a similar situation, except you're just running transect lines about 5 meters apart, so you're unlikely to miss something. And honestly, invasive species management was probably one of the hardest jobs we did. If you look at the photos here, you can see that the picture of the grass on the left is a native Heteropogon contortus, but don't get it twisted, because the species on the right is Alpluta mutica. Sorry, I can't pronounce the Latin names very well, but this is a native grass on Round Island. And the picture on the far left there is us digging through these grasses, trying to pull out the invasive ones. But clearly they look the exact same, and it's very, very difficult. And you're doing this in like 40-degree weather. So definitely a lot of hard work there. And that map in the top right corner is just showing the different sites on the island where these invasives have colonized. Now, for habitat restoration, I think I do apologize, but I can see that I'm running out of time here. And so I think I'm going to skip through these pretty quickly, because I did already explain somewhat the process when I was talking about how they built a field station and a nursery on the island. I'm just going to go very quickly through here. First step to habitat restoration is seed collection and sowing. You collect seeds, and then you collect soil, which is mixed with tortoise dung, which is a great fertilizer, from these erosion troughs around the island. And you would sow the seeds in this dirt. You would then plant them in the nursery. You would water them every single day. You would be weeding them. You would be doing pest control in all your spare time. And that middle picture is us doing a pest inventory, which has to be done once a month. That was always a pretty big undertaking. Luckily, pest control was helped by the native ornate day geckos and Boger skinks, which you can see on the right side there. Okay, once a seedling becomes a sapling, it gets repotted and monitored for at least 6 months. And if it survives that time, they start undergoing the hardening process. I already explained that. I'm going to try and skip forward a little bit here. But yeah, essentially, this hardening process would make the plants more successful when they were planted in the wild. And then the following rainy season, these plants would get planted into one of 6 restored plant communities on the island. And they would be watered and weeded every single week for 2 years after planting. As you can see in the bottom left corner there, each plant is surrounded by a thin layer of mulch, and this helps it retain moisture and also cuts off the sunlight from the adjacent soil, preventing weeds from popping up. And this is kind of like the end result. It's still, Round Island restoration is still an ongoing process, but this is what a restored plant community looks like. It's absolutely stunning. It's filled with native grasses. You can see on the top right corner of the photo, there's a native Latania that's growing big and strong, and a bottle palm right in the middle there sticking up. Bottle palms are endemic to Round Island, and there's about 10 mature individuals left in the wild. So it's pretty promising to see these young ones starting to grow back. So now to get to the most exciting part of my job, which was wildlife monitoring. So part of it was focused on seabirds. These are pelagic seabirds that spend their entire lives at sea and come on land just to breed. So I've got all these beautiful different birds here. You can see the different species and the different life stages that they're in. Now, what we would do is we would conduct breeding bird surveys. So they would be breeding in a certain site, and we would go around and catch them, and we would put a little bird band around their leg so that we could identify them in the future. And this would help us figure out which groups are doing better in terms of reproduction. You know, we would take down whether the individual adult had a baby beside it, or an egg beside it, or nothing beside it. And over time, this would build up a huge data set that would help us understand these populations better. Yeah, that photo on the left there is probably like the photo I would post on Instagram, but it was actually way harder than it looked, and way less glamorous. Like, these birds were so hard to catch. You're pretending to sneak up on them, but you're not actually, because they see you coming, and you don't want to go too fast because they might fly away. But if you go too slow, they might also fly away. So it's finding this balance on sneaking up on them. And, you know, they're screaming at you, the birds, they're pooping on you, they're throwing up squids in your lap. Like, it was a very intense process. And you can see in the photo on the right there, putting the bird band on itself is very, it's a meticulous process. And then with all of the stuff happening in the background, the stress of the bird, it's all very intense. And sometimes you would have to climb into these huge, thick bushes to find the birds. So it was just another challenge thrown your way. It was a lot of fun, though. Okay, moving on to reptile monitoring. So one of our focus species was the Gunther's gecko. And this species is extremely cryptic, and not a lot is known about them in science. And so instead of actually surveying for Gunther's geckos, we would survey for their eggs. And this is a technique I learned about in my Desmond course. So the eggs would be known as a proxy indicator, or an indirect measure that approximates a value in the absence of a more direct measure. So because we couldn't really find the Gunther's geckos, but we knew where they laid their eggs, we would monitor the eggs, and we could have some idea of how successfully the population was doing in a given moment. So we would climb these trees, as you can see in that photo. That species, Drakenia, is one of the places where they would lay their eggs. And then on those rocky outcrops in the center photo is another place they would lay their eggs. Now these guys, it was so funny. They were like impossible to find in the wild. But for some reason, you could find them really easily at the field station. There were two. Their names were Fatty number 1 and Fatty number 2. And these Gunther's geckos were so funny. They would scurry on the ceiling over top of my colleagues and pee on them. And everyone hated them. But I don't know, they never peed on me. And also, I'm in love with this animal. And so I love them. And I ended up coming home with a tattoo of them because I love them so much. I remember when I was updating people at home on how I was doing, I would often say, I found an animal that makes me feel the same way in my heart as turtles do. And people I said this to would say, "What? That's crazy." And they knew how bold of a statement that was, I guess. Okay, real quick appreciation slide for their toe pads. They're just so cute. I can't even handle them. Okay, and then wildlife monitoring for reptiles. So the goal of the reptile monitoring, it wasn't only to measure the success of the Round Island restoration projects, but it was also to collect population data for future translocations that could take place between the offshore islets of Mauritius. I'll talk about more of that later. Here on this slide, we've got the Round Island boa, the Gunther's gecko, the lesser night gecko. Oh, that's a mistake. The other one is the Durrell's night gecko. And these are really rare endangered species, and some of them only live on Round Island and nowhere else in the whole world. Some good places to find a boa were on their low-lying rocky outcrop, which characterizes their habitat in the wild. But you could also find them slithering on your back, in a cooking pot. And there's this one woman I worked with who, for some reason, would just always find boas in her bed. And I guess if you're scared of snakes, that's horrifying, but we thought it was really cool. That's just a picture of me taking it outside. Um, and then before I move on to the next slide, real quick spider warning. Um, these are some of the other critters that we would find in our wildlife surveys. Now, I actually have a phobia of spiders. And when I say phobia, I mean like not I'm not scared of spiders. I have a phobia of spiders. Like it's a medical thing. It's irrational. I have a very intense reaction when I see them. And this trip definitely helped me um, just, I don't know, be exposed to them a little bit more. I don't know if it ever got easier. I will say that the photo in the bottom right corner, that's one of the orb weavers that lives on the island. And um, they don't do anything about the webs in the field station because they're so good for pest control. And so I remember my first day in the field station, and I was making my bed, and I was just silently weeping because there's like these spiders as big as my face, like in all these corners above me. But honestly, those weren't as bad as the wolf spiders, like in the center photo here. As you can see in the top left photo, a lot of the reptile surveys, they were done in transect lines, and you can't break the transect. So if you come across a tree, you can't go around it, you have to go through it. So this would often involve army crawling. And oftentimes I would see something like this giant, scary spider, and they have no fear of humans. Like I'm crawling towards him, and he's just like, bring it on. And I'm like, I really don't want to, but I guess I have to. So that was very terrifying. But this was, it sounds a bit silly, but in all honesty, this was like a very serious obstacle that I overcame. And I'm very proud of myself. Um, and then we've got conservation translocations. That's the last thing I'll talk about for Round Island. So when Aldabra tortoises were translocated to Round Island, um, radiated tortoises from Madagascar were also part of the experiment that was meant to, the radiated tortoises were meant to be an additional ecological replacement for the original Mauritian tortoises. But it was found that the radiated tortoises weren't fulfilling the niche as successfully or effectively as the Aldabran tortoises. So one of our jobs on Round Island was if we saw radiated tortoises, we would actually have to collect them, and they would be taken off the island, and they would live actually on Îlots Aigrettes in that enclosure. It was supposed to be all males that got translocated to Round, so that in case the experiment failed, they could be rounded up really easily. But I guess a female snuck in there, and now we've got radiateds on the island. Now, moving on to Telfair skinks and Round Island boas. So back in the day when they first eradicated the mammals, this led to an explosion of Telfair's skink populations. And I swear, these guys, like, they ruled the island. They were so bold. And as you can see in this photo, they had no problem just climbing all over you. You know, this is their land. And I wouldn't be surprised if they have an uprising one day. Anyway, there were so many Telfair skinks on this island that in 2007, part of the population was actually used to reintroduce Telfair skinks to Gunner's Coin and Îlots Aigrettes, where they had once been found and then were extirpated. And they actually did so well on these islands that they then decided that why not put 60 Round Island boas on there too with them, since we're trying to recreate this complete ecosystem. And so they did that in 2012, and it has been found that the Round Island boas and the Telfair skinks are both doing really well on Gunner's Coin. These are just two examples, but there's all sorts of these creative translocations happening across all the across and in between the offshore islands of Mauritius. These findings will be used to set the protocols for future translocations, not only between these islands, but also all over the world. And this is kind of what makes Round Island such a success story, and why it's used as a bit of a conservation blueprint for conservation programs all over the world. And honestly, to have played a tiny 0.0001% role in this 50-year ongoing project is just like so humbling and just an absolutely indescribable privilege. Okay. As much as I was as much as I gave to Round Island, I was actually given so much more in return. I feel like I'm walking away from this journey with gifts just spilling out of my arms left and right, and I can't even carry them all. And all I want to do is pay these gifts forward. And one thing I'm learning is that this field of conservation, and I think life too, is just a never-ending cycle of giving and receiving gifts. And I'm really excited to implement that in the future. Now, I'm not going to read this list. I'll let you guys do that. But the hard skills I gained from this program are endless. And some of the highlights that I've already been able to apply at Pinery, specifically would be data management and radio telemetry. Like a lot of our databases for our long-term turtle study are like kind of arduous to input data. So I've been automating a lot of the Excel entry systems there. It's been really awesome. And I'm actually working on a radio telemetry project right now in the park where I'm trying to find where our turtles are overwintering to see if we can provide additional protections to these habitats. So I'm very, very happily using all these hard skills I learned. Perhaps more important than hard skills is heart fills. These are the ones that are maybe a little bit more difficult to describe in words. But yeah, the friendships and the memories and just stuff that will stick with me forever and ever. And, in all the times that I didn't spend restoring islands, I would spend chasing waterfalls with my friends and colleagues. This is a picture of me and all my best girlfriends at one of the waterfalls. And behind us, this is what the view looked like. It was just insane. We would either be chasing waterfalls or surfing and making friends with the stray dogs. This one's name was Stinky in particular. This photo is a back padding train there. Those are all the women I met in Desmond, these like amazing, strong women in conservation that have accomplished these incredible feats across the entire world. I'm still in touch with all of them and I plan to be for a very long time. In Jersey, I made it a goal to hike the perimeter of the island, like 10 kilometers at a time every weekend. And that's just one of the pictures I'm just trying to show you all how glorious this was. In one of my hikes, I came across some people climbing, and I happened to have brought my climbing shoes with me. And I ended up, this picture is showing one of my favorite memories of all times. I'm climbing the edge of an island country while the tide is coming in and the sun is setting in the background. And I feel like I had so many of these moments where I remember thinking in my head, I wish this moment could last forever. And how fortunate am I to have experienced so many of those moments. Now, friendships aside, I want to talk about the hope aspect of it all. So I have been shown that hands-on conservation works. It works, I'm telling you. If you remember Carl Jones's quote, species conservation drives ecosystem restoration. This has been proven to me face to face over this whole journey. So what that means to me is that starting out with species-focused hands-on action, whether it be nest protection or supplementary feeding or translocations, all of that good stuff, all of these efforts necessarily lead to focused research, community engagement. For example, Mauritius Wildlife Foundation is almost entirely Mauritian now. There's still international volunteers that join, but it's mostly a local group at this point. And the species focus necessarily leads to habitat and ecosystem restoration. And to see these efforts being done in real life and the impacts that they can have completely changed my life, and also what I think of when I think of conservation and how I understand the concept of conservation. And I want to know that, or I want to know why, if these things can be done in Mauritius, where things were really at their worst, why can't we use these kinds of innovative conservation tools in Canada, where we have more financial resources, a plethora of young conservationists who are foaming at the mouth to get involved with things like this, and frankly, a less degraded starting point than, say, Round Island, for example. So that leads me into my hard pills that I took away from this program. So scary softwares are QGIS and stats. Oh my. Yeah, QGIS and stats just scared the heck out of me before I got there. And then I learned that they weren't actually that scary. So my next step is to learn R, I think, which is just another terrifying software. It's like coding and spatial data and other scary words like that. But I am going to learn it, and I'm going to learn it well, and I'm going to take that with me to grad school. That's my next goal. And then probably the hardest of the hard pills is that I want to be a part of a paradigm shift in Canadian conservation culture. And here's what I mean by that. So something I've noticed in my career is that the predominant attitude of conservation practitioners in Canada is that species-focused conservation is a waste of time and money. I want to contribute towards a shift in that mindset and towards an understanding that species-focused conservation is a science-based approach that has not only been proven to be successful for species recovery, but also, as I mentioned earlier, it's a proven catalyst for these other conservation efforts that are more widely accepted, such as community engagement, education, research, and advocacy. So to clarify, I'm not saying that we should get rid of education and community engagement. And I'm not even saying that species focus and reintroductions are always the right tool to be chosen. But I want it to be realized that these are all different tools that are all effective, just as research and habitat restoration and advocacy and community engagement and policy and legislation all have acceptance in Canada as being worthwhile, as they should, because they're amazing. I want to contribute to a culture where Canadian conservation practitioners have an open mind to utilizing all of the scientifically backed tools available to them. Okay, almost done. Real quick, I'm going to talk about how I've implemented what I've learned at Pinery. I'm going to rip through these slides. I can see that I've been talking for about 100 years. Quick overview of what I do at Pinery is I work on the Pinery Turtle Project. I am so lucky. I'm the luckiest person in the world because look at my office. Look at my clients. My clients are amazing snapping turtles, and my desk is a canoe. And I feel really lucky. And the 4 prongs of the Turtle Project include population recruitment, adult mortality mitigation, education and stewardship, and research. I'm going to focus on the population recruitment aspect of things. So at Pinery, we do nest protection. So basically what that means, to make a long story short, it's natural for turtle eggs to be dug up and predated by predators such as coyotes and raccoons. This is normal. This is accounted for in their life history strategy. But with urbanization, we have this new threat called subsidized predators, where we humans, we litter and we leave our trash everywhere. And these predator populations, they eat our trash and they ingest 1 million calories, and that makes them able to have 1 million babies. And of course, we've chased the natural predators of those predators, which are wolves, out of southwestern Ontario. And so we have these unnaturally dense populations of raccoons and coyotes and other animals that like to dig up eggs. Sorry, I don't think I made that long story short. But essentially, we put these nest boxes down to protect the eggs from getting dug up. So if you look at the graph here, you can see that since 2021, we have set a park record for the number of nests protected. And this is like so amazing. It's such a labor of love to find these nests and to protect them. So it's really exciting data. But, oh, okay, apologies for this slide. Those pictures weren't supposed to be there yet, but I'll just explain that if I were to add a line that showed the success rate of the nest protectors at Pinery, you would see that it hovered around 100% in between 2017 and 2022. I mean, 2023. They were really effective. And then all of a sudden, after all of these years of a successful nest protection program, the predators just figured out how to get into our nest boxes, and they told their friends. And suddenly we're getting all of our nest boxes dug up. So the year I was away during this new NOAA, that's when this first started happening. It was really devastating. So many of our nests got predated. You can see that behind those two photos that weren't supposed to be there yet, you can see that purple line that's showing the success rate of the nests. It just dropped in 2024. And I guess it dropped a little bit lower this year. So last year, when I wasn't there, my colleagues came up with some pretty innovative ideas to try and prevent this. As you can see in these photos that showed up too early, they tried surrounding the nest protectors with rocks. They tried flipping the nest protectors upside down to keep these predators out. And the predators just didn't care. They just flung the rocks aside and they got in anyway. And you can see by this graph that the green bar is representing the number of successful nest protectors that were deployed, while the blue bar is representing just the number of nest protectors deployed. And you can see that by the green bar that this year, even though we protected 88 nests, which was a park record, only 58 of them were successful. And if you're comparing that to the number of successfully protected nests in the past at Pinery, it's actually lower than the number from 2023. So I guess the park record was a little bit fake in that sense. So this year we've been on a mission to fix this problem. We've come up with all these prototypes. We're trying out new nest protectors. The first prototype was wings. It's got these extra reinforcements around the side, but as you can see, the predators got in. So then we tried a different prototype. We called it wings, but make them mesh and make them extend farther. But this might be a little bit obvious. You might be able to guess the vulnerable point of this setup here, but the corners, we left the corners. And the predators got in and started eating the eggs. So then we said, okay, that's it. Mesh wings, but don't forget the corners. Surely nothing can happen here. And as you can see in these photos, there was an attempt. We had unfortunately left the exit holes for the little hatchlings. We had left that unblocked, and there was a predator that tried to get in, and it was unsuccessful, but it was just too close for comfort. So finally we said, okay, we're going to make the most outrageous nest protector that anyone has seen in their lives. I think this looks like a rocket ship launching area. All the exit holes are blocked. We've got wooden wings. We've got mesh wings. The wings are extending by like over a foot in every single direction. And you can see the people in the photo are laughing because this is like so ridiculous. And this actually worked pretty well. But the mesh was kind of a hazard. It's like really sharp. We had heard at another provincial park that a visitor had fallen off their bike and gotten this horrible cut from some of this mesh that was on the ground. So we're like, oh no, we have to come up with something else. So then we came up with the for design and the plus design. These arrows are pointing to where the nest would be under these nest protectors. And this actually worked pretty well, but we ran out of nest protectors. So we couldn't keep this up. So then we're like, all right, back to the drawing board. What the heck are we going to do here? And I love this photo. This is all of my amazing female colleagues and I just like suiting up in our hard hats and getting our hands dirty. And we made these new nest protectors, which we called minis. So the new idea was you would have one big nest protector surrounded by minis. It's the same idea as the plus and the for, but just less resource intensive. And then I also made a mini, because why not? And okay, the 1 bajillionth prototype I just call chaos because, you know, the minis and the mini, they did work in some substrates. In some substrates, though, such as really sandy ones, the predators could still get under. It was pretty crazy. Honestly, this is like the final evolution so far of the project. As you can tell, things are starting to get a little bit silly here, and we still haven't found the perfect answer. But I don't think that's the point of this story. The point is that we never gave up. And it kind of reminds me of the story of how Mauritius Wildlife Foundation finally figured out how to successfully restore Round Island. You know, they would try something and it would not work, or it would partially work. So they would adapt, and you're just kind of going back and forth and back and forth. And I think the takeaway from all of this is that we will never stop trying. Like, we will never give up on this. And I'm confident that we're going to find an answer, even though we haven't yet, but we will. I know this. Okay, getting close to the end here. So my next steps, I have a very special goal in mind, and my goal is to implement and study the impacts of innovative science-based conservation techniques, such as conservation breeding, reintroductions, translocations, and all these other innovative strategies that I learned about over my year-long journey. In other words, how can I get what is getting done over there, over here? I gave some examples earlier in the presentation with OTCC and Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre and Scott Gillingwater. But for the most part, I think it would be safe to say that WPC is some of the only ones that are doing this type of species-based recovery, a species-focused recovery. And I think we need more empirical evidence for success of programs like these in Canada. And so that's what I want to do. I'm trying to get into a master's program, which is crazy because I never thought I would go into academia in my whole life. But now I want to. I want to find my niche where conservation and research meet. So that is going to be me right there. You know, one thing that I learned in my program is about the fact that islands are kind of special restoration sites because they're cut off from the mainland, which means that everything that goes in and out of them can be controlled. So this helps when you're trying to implement a conservation project. And so we learned about these things called mainland islands, which is basically a conservation strategy inspired by the success of island restoration programs. And you're trying to mimic this situation using predator-proof fences to isolate reserves from surrounding landscapes. So then I started thinking, what if we round island pinery and we block all the public access and eradicate all the raccoons and fence off the park from new raccoons entering? Okay, obviously this would never happen. I'm like 67% joking when I say this. I realize this sounds totally wild, but then that makes me sit back and think to myself, why does this seem so wild? in Mauritius, they do stuff like this, and these techniques are revered and they're celebrated as they should be. And yet, for some reason, here, yeah, even to myself, that sounds insane. Like I don't think that would fly here, but I wish that it would. And so yeah, I really want to deconstruct these ideas that are so deeply ingrained in the fabric of conservation over here on this side of the world. Okay, people. Third last slide, I swear. This is kind of my final takeaway from the whole trip. I'm going to get a little vulnerable here with y'all. So when I was in Mauritius, one night we had a movie night and we watched Lord of the Rings. And there's this one quote that just absolutely struck me. So, okay, Frodo says, he's talking to Gandalf. Sorry, I sound so nerdy right now. He's talking to Gandalf and he's talking about like the horrible evil that's happening in the world. And he says, I wish it need not have happened in my time. And Gandalf says, so do I, and so do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. And man, I tell you, if I did not cry 1,000 tears when this scene in the movie unfolded, because I've become really jaded and I have a lot of what's the word? Compassion fatigue. You know, when you feel so horrible for all of the horrible things happening in the world that it has a real impact on your own mental health, even if you're in a position of privilege and you're maybe not experiencing some of these things firsthand. You know, I'm living in this world that's on fire. I'm feeling so jaded. I wish I wasn't born in this time. And this quote just is so important to me. Like, yeah, hey, it sucks that I'm here right now, but I am. And all I can do is decide what to do with this time that's given to me. And I'm going to use that time to make a difference. And going back to the heart fills of this journey, I have found so much hope on this uphill battle of conservation. And this adventure gave me so many reasons for hope and hope for the world and in what other people are doing, but also confidence in my individual ability to affect change. So I can relate a lot to Frodo. I don't know if anyone's read the books, but at the beginning, he's always talking about how like he's just a hobbit. Hobbits don't go on adventures, or maybe that's the Hobbit. Anyway, hobbits don't go on adventures, and they're just like they stay in their house. And I can relate to that because, man, I'm just an average Joe, Safine. I am. I'm really bad at math and stats, and I struggle with mental health, and I'm like really awkward. If you can't tell, I have social anxiety. I have a phobia of spiders. I'm just like this normal Frodo-esque everyday person with nothing special about me. And from an objective point of view, I have accomplished outstanding things in this field. Uh, and I don't say that to toot my own horn, but I say that to hopefully inspire other normal people that if I can do it, this nerd person right here, you guys can all do it too. Everyone in this field is a ring carrier. We're all Frodos. And, you know, these big changes, big things have small beginnings, and everyone has the power to make a difference and do outstanding things. And yeah, if I can do it, you can do it, even if you have to do it crying at some points, like I did, because you're really scared of spiders. Real quick, if you don't already know this, in 1985, Gerald Durrell actually founded Wildlife Preservation Canada. So there's kind of a fun connection there. And this is the 40th birthday of Wildlife Preservation Canada. They've been doing this new NOAA program for many, many years now. I couldn't be more, all the words, humbled, honored, grateful to be part of this legacy. Yeah, it's kind of hard to put words to it, but those are my feelings. And then finally, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to my journey. I think that went on way too long. I'm very sorry. I'll do you all a favor. I won't read this really long quote to you, but please read it on your own because I find it to be really inspiring. And if anyone has any questions, I would love to answer them.
I just wanted to say that was amazing, Rosie. I could listen to you all day. That was really nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's moderating? I see Jenna's got her hand up, I think, or is that a clap? That was a
We've
clap.
got some claps. Yeah, we've got some claps.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I have a question about the Gunther's egg laying spot. Just based on that picture, you said that rocky outcrop. It kind of looks like there were eggs on the wall. They're not laying eggs on the wall, right?
I'm so glad you asked this question because I forgot to say that they are in fact laying the eggs on the wall. So they have this interesting characteristic about them, I guess, that they always lay their eggs in sets of 2. And when the eggs come out, they're covered in this sticky material and they can stick to the walls of the rock or to the inside walls of a hollow tree trunk. And I guess the reason for this would be to keep them safe from predators on the ground. But that's a really great point. I'm glad you pointed that out.
That's cool.
Super cool.
You unmute us?
You are unmuted.
Hi, Ro. I'm wondering, is there anything that you're offering at the Pinery where everyday Hobbit people can sign up to help you with your projects?
Okay, this is something that we have discussed a lot at the Pinery, because, yeah, of course, if we could expand our efforts to look for more nesting turtles, that would make our project so much more effective. The only challenge within that is with wildlife handling permits, particularly for species at risk. So it's a little bit difficult because let's say I have a volunteer with me and they're doing such an amazing job and they found a nesting turtle that I didn't see, and that's awesome. Well, unfortunately, the only thing I could really ask them to do to help would be to hide behind a tree and stand and watch the turtle with binoculars and hide and then call me when the turtle is done nesting. You know, they because of our permits, they wouldn't really be allowed to have those those hands-on really meaningful experiences. Now, to be fair, there's probably a lot of people out there who would even be happy to stand behind a tree and watch a turtle nest for a few hours. I mean, I know I would have when I was first getting into this field. So yeah, I would say definitely that is something that's a conversation that's happening right now. And hopefully one day in the future, we'll be able to implement that.
Right.
Feel like you gave such a great presentation that with so much detail they covered everything.
Perhaps a few too many details.
No, it's great. I love it. Yeah.
Better
I
too many
would
than
say, like a lot of the things that you were saying, it's exactly how I felt, and I know the other new Noahs felt too. So it's great.
Yeah, Lance, I remember you saying before I went away on this trip that, when you get back, you're going to have all these interesting and exciting experiences to share, but no one's going to really understand what it was like other than the other new Noahs. And yeah, I talked for 1,000 more years than I even meant to in this presentation, and I still don't feel like I was able to, effectively just share what a extraordinary experience this was. It's just so unique, and I wish everyone could do this.
I think your presentation was as good as it gets. Like, um, you really, it was really good. There's a question here from Sarah. Uh, Says there are over 1,000 tortoises on Round Island now. What do you think the carrying capacity is?
Oh, that's a great question. Now, to be completely honest, I'm not entirely sure how carrying capacity is calculated. But I will say that I have been told that the carrying capacity of Round Island is about 1,000 tortoises. So I think they're like right in that sweet spot right now. Um, if they continue to expand their own population, which it seems like they're going to, um, and they become too large of a population for the carrying capacity, I'll be honest, I actually don't know what the plan is for that. But given the innovative ways in which they've approached all the other obstacles that they meet, I can imagine they'll figure something amazing out.
We had a question earlier as well, and I think a couple people answered it with their own experiences. But is Round Island still difficult to access? How are you getting there?
Yeah, so it's still very difficult to access. And um, am I still screen sharing? Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to this one photo because yeah, Round Island is so hard to access. So this rock here, it's called Landing Rock, and this is like the docking place for the boat, but it's not a good one. If you look just beyond the people in this photo, you can see that what looks like part of the ocean is actually part of the rock. And the waves of the ocean are just being swept up over it. And that's where we would do our transfers from the boat. Um, it was really scary. You have to wear your socks only so you don't slip off the rock and fall into the high seas. And when I say high seas, what I mean is that you're literally in the middle of the ocean. Like there's no coast. This is a volcanic island. And so, like, if you jump into the ocean, I don't know what the depth of the ocean is, but like you are right there. And yeah, you can see in the photo, we have some safety precautions set up. There's like a yellow rope that's hooked to the ground with a life-saving buoy if someone were to fall in, which I think happened the year before I went. But everyone was okay. But it was like very traumatizing, and they had to implement all these new safety things. So yeah, we would go out on changeover day, and we would put out these white floating buoys, which you can maybe see on the right side of the rock there. And you would someone would hold onto the rope and hold onto your life jacket. And that was the rule. You had to have someone holding onto you and a rope at all times. And yeah, you would pretty much just hope not to be swept away into the ocean. But I will say that one time I did get to take a helicopter there. This was my first time, and that was so lucky. You know, when you come to the island by boat, first it's terrifying, and then you have to carry all of your supplies like a kilometer to the field station, up and down these volcanic hills of crumbling earth. And with the helicopter, you just get dropped off at the field station. So that was pretty nice for my first visit to the island. Actually, in my second visit to the island, there was a hurricane, and they couldn't get the helicopter out to us in time before it became too unsafe to send helicopters out. And so we were actually trapped there for 7 weeks. One field trip to Round Island is supposed to be 3 weeks, and that was pretty intense. So yeah, point being, very hard to access the island, and I don't even know how I made it out alive.
Be the name of your book if you want to write a book.
Yeah, I should.
Knows most of the equipment, or is it a bit of a mix, like being brought over by boat or helicopter or both? No. Like I'm not thinking like your field equipment. I'm thinking like water, and I guess water can be collected, but food and that kind of stuff. Or is it a bit of a mix?
Okay, so you would bring, okay, the norm is to go by boat. The
Mhm.
boat would have you would have the people and the food, and that's it. Because like you said, there would be we would just collect water from rainwater and filter it with a UV filtration system, um, and you would bring enough food to last for your trip, um, and that was it. Yeah, the only reason why we didn't starve on that one time when we got stuck was just because um, there was one time when a staff team was coming to relieve us on a boat, and the waves were too choppy to make the transfer at Landing Rock. So it was too dangerous. So we couldn't switch people, but they were able to throw the food barrels into the ocean and then throw a rope to us. And then we reeled in the food barrels. And then, like I said, very rarely, if you're lucky, you might get a helicopter ride. If so, all your equipment would be on there too. But for the most part, it was boats.
Yeah, what I remember about like, well, and on other islands too, is you have to time it. Even in the nice weather, like when the waves are pushing the Zodiac up, that's when you jump out, and then
Yes,
you don't do it when it's going down. You have to really get kind of good at it.
that's exactly right. I remember the Round Island warden was in charge of making sure the boat transfers happen safely. And so you'd be on the edge of the boat and you're holding the hands of two people behind you who are on the boat, and the
Mm.
boat's going like this, and the Round Island warden is going, wait, wait, now. And then you're like, ah, and you jump onto the rock and grab onto the person who's receiving you. And it was a very intense experience.
Mm.